Hello, welcome back to the channel. I'll be covering. This is yet another Monday where I'll be covering the House of the Dragon. This time we're gonna go episode 4, King of the Narrow Sea. So I've covered this before. I've enjoyed it so far. And episode 4. This episode is not necessarily bad, but I will say that it kind of was in the beginning a bit unexpected, because this whole episode it kind of cements this whole thing around, back in those days when this sort of story was set, with what they did, how they went about doing things. And this is because, right, obviously the King of the Narrow Sea is to do with how Daemon killed the crab feeder. He went in there, got the crown and the sea and the crabs and all that. But there's also this other storyline in this episode that has to do with Rhaenyra and Daemon, played by Matt Smith. Right, Matt Smith still killing it in the show, but there's actually really giant. Like, is it? You'd think it's a plot twist, right? But it's not, because it's like, okay, I understand this. So what am I talking about? So basically, this episode dives into how basically Matt Smith's character Daemon and Rhaenyra get closer. What does that say? What does that mean? Well, they kinda get it on, which means, like, incest, and they just basically they bang each other. And this was actually a big thing in those days, where, right, they would, like, they want to retain the family bloodline and all of that stuff. And that was kind of a big thing in this episode. But it's just like the story just continues, but then you have a lot more stuff happening. You have that really big dramatic. There's a lot of family drama in this show, I've noticed, because the king sort of has a big involvement again, because he is the king and he's kind of like the person who's the king of the Targaryens and stuff. But he has another big involvement, because him and Otto Hightower, which is one of the characters that kind of connect to him, and he's played by the lizard guy in Amazing Spider-Man. Right, he's played by that guy who was that scientist guy, anyways. But yeah, they had that conversation. Otto Hightower and King Viserys, they have a conversation, and basically, like, it comes to the point where he's Otto Hightower's trying to confess to him the fact that Rhaenyra came out and she did what she did. She went to, basically they went to this brothel in this town place, and it's basically the ladies of the night, and they all basically, when they all just bang each other, basically, is the best description. So he was talking about that. He was Otto Hightower was confessing to King Viserys about that and how she did that. And when Otto Hightower describes this to the King Viserys, he's like, this has to be a lie. And then he kind of after a while, he kind of sticks up for her. He's like, yeah, okay, this kind of runs in the family. And you've got to consider that King Viserys kind of wifed up he wifed up Alicent, which was this girl that you can see with Rhaenyra. Like, they connect sort of together in the story, and they're kind of like friends. But like, the thing is with that, if we're leading with that, right, like when that discussion is happening, right, with Otto Hightower and King Viserys, like Alicent hears what's going on, and then she freaks out, right? She freaks out, and then it turns out that she wants to have this discussion with Rhaenyra, and then they have the discussion, and then when her and Rhaenyra have the discussion, Rhaenyra lies to her, like, I would never do that. I would never sleep with my Uncle Daemon. And it was kind of like that thing. She said, I would never sleep with him. Right? She's trying to cover this up. And Alicent gets mad, obviously, because you don't want, lying to people sucks, but she just doesn't. She was freaking out and she didn't know what to say, and well, she just really was. She was pissed, basically, and it was really telling of what was happening. And that sort of thing happened where, she got really mad at her, which kind of kicked off this whole idea of how this whole thing about Daemon and Rhaenyra come together. There's also well, after Rhaenyra does that, right? There's that, right? I'm kind of jumping all over the place here, but after Rhaenyra actually does the thing with Daemon, right? Daemon actually runs off, and he actually kind of gets punished as well, in a way. And then also, from what I remember, Rhaenyra actually goes in, like she goes back to the castle thing, and then there's like that night, there's that guy, and then she kind of like she starts kissing him, and the guy was like, I'm not into this mood. But after what she did with Daemon, she started taking his bit of his armor off, and then they actually did the deed again, like on her bed as well. It's like, it was weird because she's never done this in the show, so you're thinking to yourself, why is she doing this? But it was like kind of like a task where, Damon invited her to this brothel and that kind of thing, and that's actually kind of what the episode was about. It really just kind of showed you how, that back in those days, it's just kind of reflecting, like, back in those days they used to do that stuff a lot, and then Renita actually got like the day after pill where it's like the women so they don't actually get pregnant, you know what I mean? Because like when you do that, you have the relations and stuff. If you drop your stuff into someone, and if the woman has to get the pill so she doesn't get pregnant, right? And it was really weird because Damon is like older than her, and she's like young, and they're related in the family and that stuff. So I was just kind of went a bit deeper there, but that was the episode. It was really, really interesting. The show doesn't need to have so much action to be good, because there's other things as well. I'm just glad it isn't a bad show. Like, I'm really glad that doesn't beat you over the head or anything like that. It just tells the story how it is, and I've still not read Fire and Blood. I don't want to, because I want to just watch the show more to understand the story. If I go off and read Fire and Blood, I'm gonna already know what's gonna happen at the end of the show. But apparently they kind of switch things around with this version of the Fire and Blood and the Song of Ice and Fire. They touch on the Song of Ice and Fire and that stuff towards the end of the episode, but that's my thoughts, right? This show is not bad, right? That is my review. See you next week for another review. James Hamlin Show, we're continuing all this coverage. So yeah, bye.